Hello, thank you so much for joining. This video is brought to you by Made by Bertha. And today I'm going to go over how to make this cute little holiday snowman sock that you can personalize with a design and a monogram made out of vinyl. Let's go over the materials you'll need to create the snowman sock. First, I have an array of items here to show you the items you'll need to purchase or look around the house and find. The first item is the main body of the snowman, which will be made out of a white sock. And this is a men's crew sock that you could find anywhere in your local stores or maybe in Walmart or Target. Now, there are a few types that you can find, and sometimes you'll have this little heel cup with a gray area. That's okay to get. We'll cut this section out later. You don't really need it. But ideally, if you can find one that's completely straight like this one, that would be the one to buy. Or maybe look in your laundry basket and find some mismatched socks if you like. Now, I found this sock in a dollar store and it's very flimsy and thin. It's probably a summer sock or a dress sock, so you don't want to find this particular one for your snowman. Try to avoid this thin sock, and you can, feel it and see and make sure that you can find a nice thick one, maybe for winter socks. And what you want to look for is the one that has ridges on top there, because that's going to be where the main body of the sock or the snowman will be. Next, while you're walking around in Walmart or Target, look for colorful socks, and these are ankle socks that I found in the women's and girls section, or even the boys section, and I'm looking for bright colors or designs that I can use for the hat or maybe the body of the snowman. And then I also have a children's t-shirt while I was walking around, and you'll find one that you can use for the scarf. Any color will do. I have a pink one and a red one here that I cut up already. And what you want to do is you want to cut them up to be about 2 inches wide, as the scarf will, or the t-shirt will curl together. It'll be a great scarf for the snowman. Next, you'll want to find yarn or ribbon that you're going to want to use to embellish the hat of the snowman. And I found this great yarn, and it's a t-shirt yarn. It's already all curled up and folded for me, and it has a nice decorative color for Christmas. So let me show you how I cut up the children's t-shirt. As you could see, all you need is the middle section. I wanted to get the pieces where there is no seams or sewing in it, so I cut up the middle of the t-shirt and the widest part as much as I can. And the rest of the t-shirt you can save for other things, but you basically cut them up and you'll get 2-inch wide strips, and you want to cut up the edges a little bit so that they don't fray. And that's you can use decorative scissors or pinking scissors, and you can see the ridges at the end there, and it just adds a little decorative flair. Next, you will need materials for the eyes. Now, you can get creative with the eyes and figure out what types you want, but the safest way to go is wiggly eyes. Everybody has wiggly eyes in their craft room, for their kids, or for past projects. So if you've got wiggly eyes, you can start with those as your safest bet. But alternatives, I have found faceted flat back beads, and these are black faceted beads. And I don't know if you can see the faceted aspects of it because it's so dark a bit, but these, if the snowman moves a little bit, it'll have like a little sparkle in the eyes type thing. Okay, hopefully you can see that. There we go. Alternative to the faceted ones, I found these little cute dome flat backs, and these can be used if you want like a beady eye look to your snowman. And I found 2 different sizes for these, and this you can get on the internet or in New York City. There's a place called MJ Trimmings, M&J Trimmings, and these are 6mm hot fix flat back dome shaped, and then the smaller one are 4mm. So look around the house and see what you could find to pick your eyes for the snowman. Let's move on to the nose. And for the nose, you can be as creative as you like, and you can be as colorful or not. And I've gotten pom-poms, and I thought these were cute additions. I got them in the fall collections or when you're using it for Halloween and such. So you can use the orange or any other color you would like for pom-poms. And I got 2 different sizes in my collection. So pick and choose the size of pom-poms if you have them that you want to use for the nose. Alternatively, I have the faceted flat bags. Instead of the black for the eyes, I've got these colored ones in various colors, and they add a nice sparkle to the nose if you like to use that. In NJ trimmings, like the domed eyes, I found these spike-shaped sew-on beads, and they have a little hole in the bottom of the bead so you can sew them on, but they're triangular, cone shapes, which I thought worked well as an option for the nose. So you can get a nice pointy nose if you like to look like a carrot. And lastly, in my beading section, I found these little teardrop beads, and it has the holes on top this time, but it has a flat enough bottom at the bottom of the teardrop that you can put a piece of glue in to use for the nose. And these could be, more see-through kind of carrot noses if you want to use that kind of a bead as your nose. Okay, so pick your choice, see which one you like best, or see what you have in your craft room, and hopefully you'll be able to find something that suits your needs to put on the nose of the snowman. Now let's move on to the top of the hat. As you could see, there are embellishments that I put on top, and there's a bow and maybe some glue-on items there. So traditionally, you've seen maybe snowmans being decorated with buttons, and in the middle of the belly of the snowman, people have put buttons there. You could also use the buttons for the top of the hat as well. But I found other things like these hollies, and have nice glitter on them that you can use with the hat, and some snowflakes, nice and white, and then some flowers that have Christmas colors to it, and then lastly I have some poinsettias. So any of these would work for the top of the hat and or the body. You can use the poinsettias or the flowers or even the snowflakes in place of the buttons for the middle of the belly of the snowman. So whichever one you have around the house, pick and choose, get a few items out and see what you would like to do. If you're going to decorate the snowman with a design like I have in the picture here, let me go over some vinyl options for you. Now there's a few options that you can use. There's a nice glitter option, and this is a little bit thicker but has lots of sparkle. We also have the gold, and this one's a little bit stiffer. It's a metallic gold, and you can get them in maybe a Silhouette store or Cricut. And then there's also an easy weed of copper. And lastly, there's the pattern printed vinyl, and this you can get in Sparkleberry. And I love Sparkleberry vinyl because there's just so many colors and assortments of designs, and you have matching solid vinyl to match those patterns. But for this particular video, we're going to use the Easy Weed, so that because my design is very detailed oriented, I wanted the design to come out, not so much the patterns and stuff on the vinyl. If you have a simpler design like a monogram or a name, you can go with the pattern look for the printed vinyl on Sparkleberry, or even the glitter ones, so that it can show off the actual vinyl as the showcase. But for the one that I'm going to be showing you today, I'm going to use the copper one because I want to showcase the design. Lastly, we'll need some tools to help you assemble the snowman. And I have a few pairs of scissors here, just regular scissors, and some pinking scissors or decorative scissors. These have nice rigid edges there to cut for the scarf. You'll also need some rubber bands, maybe 3 or 4 of these, and also the clear elastic bands. And these are the ones you can find, you know, for tying your ponytails in the drugstore or Walmart and such. You'll also need some ribbon or some tying. It could be fishing line or ribbons for Christmas decorations, whatever you want to choose, as long as it does not stretch. You want to have something to reinforce the rubber bands, because the rubber bands could wear out over time. So these we'll want to double tie it wherever we tie a rubber band. And then of course a bowl of rice, and you want to get some kind of scooping device to be able to transfer the rice to the sock. And then lastly, also glue gun. Now that you have all the materials, let's get started making the body of the snowman. First, take out your white sock, and whether you got one with a heel cup or the straight one, doesn't really matter. If you got one with the heel, what you want to do is when you fold the sock in half, you'll cut out the sections right before the gray area of that heel, so that none of the gray is showing within the snowman. But if you have the long one, long and straight one, all you'll have to do is just get your scissors out, and you're going to fold the sock in half, and you're going to cut the sock right relatively in the center. And just make sure that the sock is flat before you cut. And so we're going to be using mainly the top of the sock for the body of the snowman, and you can save the bottom of the sock for other things. You can use it for the hat if you want a white hat, or you can use the decorative socks to make a hat like this one. If you use the decorative socks, you'll want to cut up the decorative socks right after the heel section, give it a little bit more room, and you can use this middle section of the socks after you cut off the toes to use the middle section to cover up the snowman body as if the snowman was wearing a sweater, and you can place it in the middle later. And you use the heel and cut off the top of that ankle, and you're going to use that to make the hat. So you're going to try to use as many pieces of this decorative sock as possible. And then if you wanted a white hat, you can use the bottom of the sock to cut off the toes, and then you'll use that as your hat. So the first thing you're going to have to do is turn the sock inside out, and at the top of the sock where the ridges end, we're going to put a rubber band on that section, and you're going to wrap it as many times as you can without breaking the rubber band, because you want it as tight as possible. So go over it 2 or 3 times, and then stretch out the sock a little bit so that the rubber band is secure at the bottom there. Then take some ribbon. As I mentioned before, if the rubber band deteriorates a bit, you want to have something else to make sure that it doesn't fall apart. So take some ribbon that does not stretch, and you're going to wrap it around a few times and then make a square knot. And just for safety measures, I'll wrap it again one more time and make another square knot on the other side, just to be safe, because this is going to be the bottom of your snowman, and you want to make sure that it doesn't fall apart. Once that's done, flip it inside and out, and then start pouring the rice in. Now, I can't tell you how much rice is enough, but what you want to do is add more than you think, because even though it looks full, it's really not, because the sock will expand. So as you pour, you want to press it down a bit and compress the sock and the rice together to push it down, and just keep filling some more. And once you get a good handle of how much you need, just add a little bit more just for safety measures, because it will expand. And if you don't add enough, you'll see later on the next step that sometimes it won't be firm enough, and then you'll have a lopsided head for the snowman. So when in doubt, just keep adding more. And for this one, I used a whole bowl of rice. So I'm going to pat it down, and then once I'm satisfied that I'm compressing it, I'm going to tie it off with another rubber band. And this will be the top of your snowman, where the head's going to be. And don't worry about this section, we're going to be hiding this part inside the hat, but make sure that it's secure and no rice will fall out. So double check, make sure you've got it nicely tight. And then you're gonna squeeze the snowman and figure out where you want the neck to be. And this is where you'll know if you have enough rice. If you have too thin of a neck, you didn't put enough rice in there. So open it back up if you need and fill in more. If you've got a good firm neck, then you're in good shape. So just place the rubber band where you would like the neck to be. And I usually go about 40%, 60% of the snowman. Once you're done, just chop off that section and just take out some of the rice if there's any sticking on top. And then you want to reinforce the top of the head again with the ribbon to make sure that that section does not fall apart. So double knot it, wrap it, double knot it, wrap it again. Just make sure that it's secure and tight. I'm pulling really tightly on this. Okay, and that's the snowman. So just form it a little bit, make sure you got nice, firm, rounded edges. Next, I'm gonna try out some embellishments and I'm gonna put the hat on to see how that would look. So that looks pretty good there. Size-wise is not bad. And you can go for a small hat or big hat. And then you could also give the snowman a sweater. So as I mentioned before, this is the middle portion of a decorative sock. You can put that on top of the body of the snowman and then make it look like the snowman is nice and toasty with a sweater. Like that. And then sometimes people will put, you know, different kinds of options for scarves. And this is one you can reuse the top of the sock for that piece if you'd like to have, you know, white collar and mix match different decorative socks as you want. You could also put buttons down the middle and put different kinds of scarves there. And this would be a simple snowman where you don't need to put vinyl or anything else decorative on it. Because the snowman has clothes basically, and all you need to do is just embellish the scarf maybe, or embellish the belly right there with some buttons and such. And then that would be an easy way to go. And let me just take out some embellishments here and show you. So if you do the flowers, you can use the flowers instead of buttons. And then you can put 2 of them there, and that will be in place of the buttons. Or you can do the traditional white buttons or colored buttons and glue them on right around in the middle as well, the belly, and that looks nice and spiffy. All right, so there's different options that you can go with. Whichever way you decide to go, or mix and match and try a different few. No 2 snowmen will look alike. So have fun with it and give it a shot. Okay, so let me take this all back out. And let's move to our next piece. For this next step, I'm going to show you how to import a design into Cricut Design Space or the Silhouette Studio. And this is the design that I'm going to be using. And I chose the Powered by Coffee to put on to the side of the snowman. And I'm going to give it to a coffee lover as their Christmas gift. So when you download the file from Made by Bertha, it'll come with a zip file, and it has 4 different files in it. And if you're using the Silhouette Studio, the basic edition, and it is the free version, you'll be using the DXF extension file to be able to import the design into Silhouette Studio. If you have the Designer Edition Plus, or the Business Edition, you can then use the SVG version of the file, and same thing for Cricut Design Space, you can use the SVG. Now, if you wanted to use the image in other places, or you just want to do a print and cut, you can use the PNG version on this. Okay. And then for those who have Adobe Illustrator and other software, the ESP version is also available for you to be able to use that. Now, let's get started with Silhouette Studio. And this is Silhouette Studio, the basic version, and this is completely free. You can download this with your Silhouette machine from silhouetteamerica.com, and they have options to upgrade to the designer or business version. I recommend just getting started with basic until you get a little bit more comfortable, but I personally like the business version because it has full features and there's a lot more options in the functionality that is provided to you with the business version. But for right now, for what we need, the basic version and the basic edition is sufficient. So as I mentioned before, if you have the basic edition, you're going to use the DXF extension file. If you have anything higher than basic, you can use the SVG extension file. Okay. So you go to the location of where you unzip the files or wherever your design may be, and you're going to import that in. Now you want to check the design. If you can click in different portions of the design, you don't want to touch that design yet. Okay, so you want to just highlight all of it so you capture every part and piece of the design, and you're going to come up here into this little icon to group it and to group selected shapes. And by grouping it, you're not going to be able to manipulate or distort the image or the design. You want to keep it all intact. Okay. Now, then we're going to resize it. So you can go and just resize it using the arrows, but I prefer to resize it using the transform module here. So click on this one here for the transform panel, and on the second icon for scale, there is specific dimensions, and you want to lock this image first for the size, for the width and the height. So if you don't lock it, it'll get distorted and such. So let me show you if I don't lock it, and I'll change that to 4. As you can see, the bottom does not change. So when you apply it, it gets wonky like that. So let's undo that. And I'm gonna lock it in first. And I really want a 2-inch width, and that will automatically resize the height because it's locked. Okay, and it doesn't do anything until you hit apply. At this point, we're going to be flipping the image into a mirrored image, or flip it horizontally. And you want to do this because you're going to be using heat transfer vinyl. So anytime you will use heat transfer, you always have to do it mirrored image when you cut. And that goes for t-shirts and such. So there are 2 ways to do this. One, you can go to the replicate panel, and then you can do mirror left or mirror right, it doesn't really matter. And then you'll have 2 images and you delete the original. Or you can go to the objects menu and go to mirror and flip horizontally. Okay. Then once you finish mirroring, then you can place the object and the image where you want it and where you want to cut it. And then you can head over to the send. As this is a new installation of the Silhouette Studio, I don't have my devices connected here. So if you are starting fresh, and this is your first time, you're going to want to connect your device with a USB cable and let the software recognize your machine being connected. So if you have a Cameo 2 or Cameo 3, the Portrait or the Curio, plug it in at this time and let the software recognize what machine you have. So once you have connected the machine, you're going to want to go to the line option here. And I prefer line because if there's more than one object or more than one color, I'll be able to see here and check and uncheck the ones I want to cut. And maybe there's hidden things that you cannot see in the design, so I prefer to use the line instead of simple. Now, depending on the material that you are using, you can select the options here, as these are all pre-configured for you. And I'm going to be using the heat press, the heat transfer smooth. And then make sure that you set this to cut and pick the tool and the blade that you're going to be using. Now, if you install the Cameo 3, you'll have additional options here for the auto blade. And so if you have the auto blade, definitely use that so that you can just set it and forget it. If you use the ratchet blade, you're going to have to set the blade to the number that you see here so that it matches the height and the depth of that blade. But depending on what material that you select, it presets all of the speed, the force, and the number of passes, and the height and the depth of that blade. Okay, so once you set this up, you can do a test cut on once you see the options down here with your machine, and then you can proceed to cut the design for your heat transfer vinyl. For those of you that have a Cricut machine, I'm going to show you how to import the design into the Cricut Design Space. And we're going to be using the SVG file, and this one can be used for the Silhouette Studio Designer or Business Edition as well. But for Cricut, you can use PNG as an image file to import, or SVG. So whenever you have an SVG, use that one instead of any of the other file extensions. So when you first come into Design Space, you'll see all of your projects at the bottom here. So if you already have one already started, go ahead and open that one. If not, you can do new projects from down here or new projects from up here. Okay. And it'll bring you into the canvas view. So what you're going to want to do is hit upload at the bottom here and upload image. Click on browse, and you're going to head over to where you unzipped the files earlier and select the SVG file. So as you can see, it comes in with these checkered boxes, and this means that the background is transparent, which is exactly the way you would want to bring it in, but you don't want to be bringing in a white background into your design. So then you can update the name and call it whatever you would like, and also put some tags in so that you can find them later. So I'm just going to put coffee here, and then I'm going to hit save. And this will upload the design into your design space. So then once you uploaded that, click on the image itself and insert image into the canvas. So as you can see, it'll come into groups of little parts and pieces, just like you saw in the Silhouette Studio. It's broken into tiny little pieces, so you don't want to touch any of those things separately. So I recommend is just you go all the way to the top level group, and as you can see, this thing is very large as it comes in, and this is typical for the Cricut Design Space. It has no rhyme and reason on how big this comes in. So what we're going to do is, just like in the Silhouette Studio, there is a lock options here. We're going to lock the proportions of the width and the height, and then I'm just going to type in for the width, I'm going to type in 2 and hit tab or hit away from it, and then it'll resize the height accordingly. Now these are already grouped, so you don't want to touch the ungroup and leave it in the group, so you're not really manipulating any of the parts and pieces separately. So with Cricut Design Space, it doesn't matter where you put it on the canvas, because once you get into the cut aspect, you're going to have to move it around anyway. Okay? So let me show you what happens here. So I'm going to click on Make It. Now, as you can see, these are all broken up into the tiny little pieces. The groupings that you saw earlier doesn't really make a difference. So what you want to do is you don't want to cut it like this. You want to go back and cancel. And you want to select the image itself. And you're going to want to attach. Okay. And then so when you click on Make It, it all comes in as one piece. Okay. So at this point you can resize. Well, you don't want to resize. You can move around where you want to cut the image based on where you are placing the vinyl on the mat. And then the part that you want to do, especially because it's going to be a heat transfer, you're going to want to mirror that image. And since we're going to be placing the vinyl sunny side up. Okay. And then once you're ready to do that, you can hit continue. So once you hit continue, you want to have your Cricut machine on, and it's going to try to find that machine. And once it locates it, then you'll see the materials and tools being set up. Okay, there we go. And so the default that I have is on cardstock, and I have it on the fine point blade. So you can change the blade if you like to another blade if you have it, but the fine point is the one we're going to use. And then I'm going to change the dial, since I have an Explorer 2, to hit one of the preset options of just vinyl. And then then you're going to put the blade in and set the mat, and we're ready to go. So since we're going to mirror the design, when you put the vinyl on the mat, you're going to want to do the color face down. So the one that I had was the copper Easy Weed. I'm going to put the copper color facing downwards. Okay, because that's where, and when you feel the vinyl for the heat transfers, you're going to see where the carrier sheet part is, and you're going to want to put that face down onto the mat itself. Once you cut out the design, I'm going to flip it over, and I'm going to start to weed all the external parts of that design. So when I weed, I'll use a weed tool or a hook, and you just want to peel out from the corners. And don't forget, this particular design, there's things in the middle, so you want to just be very gentle and be very careful on when you're weeding out, to make sure that it does not pick up all the little letters, because we do have very tiny letters in here. And just shift my camera a little bit and zoom in so you can see. And you see, I'm pulling in the direction opposite of those letters so I can get those W's out and such. And then pick out all of the little holes, little cutouts within each letter, and just be careful not to have them catch back onto the carrier sheet. For the next step, we are now ready to apply the heat transfer to the snowman. So I have this little heat press, and it's a little hobby heat press that I like to carry around if I'm traveling and such, because it's so light and versatile. And it's a swing away. So what you're gonna have to do is I'm gonna turn it on and set it to the temperature that I want, and it depends on your specific vinyl. So read your manufacturer's instructions on what the temperature is. But I'm gonna place the heat transfer on the snowman itself, and I'm gonna pat it down so I can try to get a leveled flat surface, because we're gonna press this a little bit, so we wanna make sure that it captures everything. So I'm just gonna bang it a little bit on the table to get a nice, even, flat surface. Now I'm putting the snowman at the edge, and you've got to be careful not to burn the rubber band, but I'm going to put slight pressure onto the snowman itself so that the heat press is pressing as hard as I can on the snowman. And then so I'm going to set my timer to 30 seconds. And once 30 seconds is up, let's take the snowman out of the heat press. And you want to check to see if all the parts and pieces are tacked down into the snowman. If it's not, then repress it again into the section where it's not touching. But I think this one looks pretty good. Next, I'm going to adjust the heat press to make sure that now it's low enough for me to be able to attach the scarf. So for the scarf, you can do another vinyl piece like I do here for the bee with the same copper easy weave. And I'm gonna do the same thing for 30 seconds and make sure it's tight on this one. You don't want to be able to pull out that t-shirt for the scarf. And once you have the vinyl intact on the scarf, we can start assembling the snowman. So let's give it another few seconds for it to finish up. And lift up the heat press. And you want to be very careful with the heat presses, whatever you're using, because it is very hot. So I'm going to peel that off. And there's a nice copper easy weave on the scarf. It's for a monogram. Now you're ready to put everything together and assemble a snowman. So let me just show you a quick step before we get started. So this is the hat that I'm going to be using. And this came from one of the heel cups of the decorative. Just cut off the heel right there and make a tube, basically. And then you're going to scrunch up the top of the sock there and take the elastic bands. I'm going to take 2 of these and I'm just going to wrap it around so I can make I can tie it up. And you want to do as many times as possible without breaking the elastic band. And then adjust it until you're satisfied with the way it looks. And I'm just going to expand it a little bit so I can get the hat to be a little bit bigger on the inside. So the next step is we're going to tie a ribbon around the neck of this snowman. Because it has a rubber band intact there, I want to make sure I reinforce the area where the rubber bands are. So I'm just going to make a double knot, wrap it around twice and make a double knot. And just really get in there and make sure that you have that nicely tight. And then for safety measures, I'll do one more double knot just to make sure it doesn't unravel. Okay, let me get some of that fuzz out. And then let's cut off the ends of the ribbon. Okay, so now adjust the snowman to plump it up a little bit, make it more rounded. Adjust wherever you need to so that the shape is where you want to be. And then let's start off with putting the scarf on. So I'm going to use the one that I did for the with the vinyl, the monogram. And you're going to figure out how you're going to tie the scarf. And the goal is I want to have the monogram on top. So let me play with this a little bit to see where I need to adjust. So I'm going to just put it under and over. And I'm going to see if the scarf is long enough or maybe it's too long and you just need to adjust it. So yeah, so that's a little bit off and I'm going to just want to adjust that a little bit because I want that one a little bit higher. I want the monogram right at the base of the snowman. So let me just do a slight adjustment there. bit more. And so we're going to uncurl the t-shirt scarf and try to make it flattened out a bit so that when we glue it down, the sides are facing, the scarf is facing nicely flat like that. Okay. And so you don't want to cover the design, but at least close enough to where the design will be. Okay, so that looks pretty good right there. Just adjust it like some more and make it tight. So when you're satisfied with what you're going to do, then we're going to plug in the heat gun, and we're going to start gluing the scarf down to this base of that neck. So go all around underneath the scarf, just put little dots of glue and make sure you capture so that it doesn't come off. And then once you get to the base of the scarf, we're going to place a few drops downwards and put the first layer down. And then put a few more dots down for the top layer where the monogram letter will be. So once you're done, I'm taking out my pinking scissors and I'm going to cut the edge to make it look nice and sharp. There you go. Next is going to be the hat, and you can adjust it however you would like. You want it tilted, you want it straight, whichever way you want, and you can leave the socks curling, or you can glue it down flat. So glue all the way around the hat as well so that it does not come off. And hot glue does wonders. Just adjust it slightly, take out some of the frame. And there you go. Nice snowman hat. So then decide what embellishments you like. I can do the poinsettia or the snowflake or maybe the holly. I think I like the holly better on this one. It has a nice contrast to the hat there. So figure out what direction you're going to use. Or maybe the snowman. It's really your preference or how you want to make the snowman look. Okay. So now I'm going to just flatten it out first, and I'm also going to figure out how I'm going to do the face of the snowman. And so I decided I'm going to be using the flat back faceted eye for the eyes, and then I'm going to use the small pom-poms and do an orange nose there. Isn't that cute? Okay. So I'll place it where I want it, and I'm going to glue it down. Now be careful here, fingers can get hot and burnt, so just be aware. You can use tweezers and such, as these are small delicate pieces. You don't want to get too much glue on it, so if you squirt the glue gun directly on them, it might be too much and you'll have globs of glue that you're going to want to take off. So I just put it on a piece of tissue or a napkin and just dip it and then place it where I need to. There we go. So I've got the eyes and the nose. Now I prefer not to have a mouth because it's cuter for me, at least in my preference, not to do a mouth, but you can draw in a mouth piece or put other materials if you like to assemble a mouth. So I'm going to put the glue gun also on the embellishments and put that on the cap of the hat there. There we go. For the last step, I'm going to wrap the t-shirt yarn on top of the hat. This is where you had the elastic bands, and I'm going to wrap it twice, make a knot, add a dab of glue so that it can stabilize the knot, and then finish it off with a nice bow. So adjust the bow until you're satisfied and it looks nice and pretty. And then I'm going to cut the tails off with my pinking scissors to finish it off. And that's it. That's the last step. So take a look at the snowman as a whole and see if there's any more last minute touches that you want to make. And I think overall it came out pretty cute, and I'm just going to adjust it slightly to make him look more plumped. And you're done. Congratulations! Now you have a personalized snowman sock with vinyl and monogram. Here's a few more examples. These two I made with snowman wearing a sweater, so I put decorative socks in the middle to cover the body, added a few buttons, and also decorated the scarf with some rhinestones, and I changed the hat to the white sock. These three, I created another powered by coffee, but just changed out the scarf to a rhinestone, and the other two, I have two other designs added there: Born to Ride, Forced to Work, or Life's Better at the Beach. So that gives you hopefully some more examples for you to figure out how you want to decorate your snowman. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed creating a wonderful personalized gift for this holiday season. And if you want more information, or if you liked any of the designs that you've seen on this video, please head over to madebybertha.com. Until next time, happy holidays.